Okay, let's look at this next project. So, I have these two flowers, and I've already painted this one once. Excuse me. This is the way I worked on it, and I don't like the placement of the leaves, but I'm pretty pleased with the effect. So now I'm doing this one, and this is the one that I've planned for class. My thinking is that once we've warmed up on this, that we might just do something that has both of them, possibly with a bud. And yes, I'm working from artificial flowers. When it comes to sunflowers, I'm great with artificial. That's fine. And I like some of the artificial poinsettias better than the real ones, but I will never paint an artificial iris. All right. So, part of this technique, this style of painting, isn't just what's there, it's what isn't there. And this is a very important point. Look at this set of petals. Although there's a little bit of tint of color there, this is one whole big shape right there. It doesn't have little lines going down between everything. And the fact is that frequently when you look at a sunflower, at least a real sunflower, and I'll admit these show a lot of definition because they've got a lot of nice the way the light's hitting on them and everything. The point I'm trying to get at is a lot of the time when people paint something like this, they paint a line in between each and every one of the petals. And usually the line's too dark, too. And it just looks like, pretty boring. The other thing is the shape of the petals. If you work from real shapes, depending on the angle that you're seeing them from, you're going to get different things happening. Look at those little pointy petals out there. And that's what's really happening to these petals at that angle. So, and that's very much like a real thing. So you get this variety of shapes in here, and then you get some big wide ones and then there's these little things around here which I think are just quite decorative that I really like. So, again, if you look at the silhouette of this, that's what you get right here. Okay, mild interruption. So, where was I? So I have not even drawn lines in between here. It doesn't mean that there won't be some indications of something, but for the tracing, something like this, and I'm showing you this rather than the tracing that's on the paper because this shows up a little bit better, I think, on the video. So let's get started. We're only using 4 colors, period. Just 4 colors. We're using Quin Gold, New Gamboge, Cerulean, and Quin Violet. People have been asking me, well, what's Quin Violet for? Because, well, that's another story. But we're using it here. You can see the leftovers in my palette from when I worked on this. So you can see the violets and the blues. There's a little bit of blue over here. Whatever. All right. So let's do a little bit of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work very loosely. I'm not going to be terribly concerned with these lines on the first effort here. So let's put out some New Gamboge. And here's the thing. I want, before you come to class or before you work on this at home, be sure that you wet down your Quin Gold and your cerulean the night before. I want them to be gooey. Or, the top layer. No, not all gooey all the way to the bottom of your well, but a gooey top. Let's call it that. So, got some here. But the real reason I want it to be gooey, well, you'll see in a few minutes. All right, and let's put out a little bit of the blue. And by gooey, I mean, you know, on the creamy side. However, you're going to use some thick paint too in a minute. Okay. That's enough to start out with. We don't need the violet yet. Okay. So I'm going to choose to use a round brush, particularly because all this pointed stuff. And because I want to work really thin at first. So you can see I have a lot of water in here with the New Gamboge. So let's just start playing with this. I'm on 140 pound paper, and I'm doing that in part because it's a little bit, it will make back runs and things a little bit more than 300 pound, and right now I would like some. So I'm kind of staying in the lines. I'm starting out kind of staying in the lines. That doesn't mean this is going to stay that way. So let's see. Yeah, that's a petal. I've got some leaves down here. So since the leaves are such a close shape to the petals, it gets a little confusing. Okay, so I'm going around here, but see, this is staying wet because this is a pretty soupy paint. And here's the thing. I don't want this to get too dark too soon. In fact, I might have a little too much color there. Okay, and all of this stuff is petal stuff. All right. Paper towel. Never paint without a paper towel handy. Maybe I'll pull a little bit of that color up. So let's just drop in a little bit of the gold. In fact, I'll go ahead and reach into the well. Kind of stick the point of my brush down in the gooey stuff. Really could have stirred that up a little first. It would have been better. Okay, because I may just drop in. Yeah, actually I hadn't planned to do this for a couple more minutes, but here I am. So I'm dropping some of this into some of these areas that could get a little darker. Okay, there. Yeah, I like that. All right, so we could also, you know, that's got that green thing in the center. Let's just play with a little blue here. I know, let's just spatter a little blue. Okay, and now let's take some of that blue and don't worry about the yellow. Let's break up some of the edges. Remember, this is our first layer down. I want to keep this pretty pale. I'm a little concerned that my color might be a little too strong there, but it'll work. Okay. We'll just go over the leaves. We'll pretend the leaves aren't there for now. And I love it when these colors run together like this over here. Well, there's just a little bit of that purple in there. I'll just go ahead. I really don't want the purple yet. No. That's not going to get me the color I want. There are times when that purple can be very, very dulling, actually. So well, some of this is starting to dry. So what I'm going to do before I do anything more, ooh, look at all that yellow blossoming out into here. I'm going to drop a little bit of water into this. You can overdo it. You just want to do a little bit, and it should, because this is 140 pound. Oh, see, there's a bloom going there. Here's a bloom. There's a bloom. Everywhere, a bloom, bloom. Yeah. Okay. A little more of the blue. Unfortunately, I contaminated it with the purple. I'll just do a drop here, a couple of drops there, and I still want to keep this pretty thin. Doesn't have to be everywhere yet. I may decide to do something different somewhere. So here's what we're getting. We're getting a very entertaining surface. Color is moving in and out. It's making things happen. It's kind of broken up the idea of the sunflower. And the next step will be to reclaim the sunflower from all of this. But in the meanwhile, you'll have built something pretty nice here. This area went dry on me very early on. I don't think that could back run if it tried. You know what? We'll just pull a little blue in there. Let's leave some areas light. Maybe I'll blot. And we've got some twinkles. Notice there are a few twinkles. All right. That is our beginning. I'll be back in a little bit when this is dry, because I'm not going to blow dry it until the surface loses its sheen, because I want these textures, and blow drying can smooth out texture. Sometimes if you've got something and you didn't want it to have texture and it's kind of going south on you, run to the blow dryer. That'll smooth it out. Okay, yeah, let's stop right there. Okay, so now we're going to start to build a little shape into the flower itself. And so that I don't start looking at the wrong one, I'm just going to fold this over. It's so easy to start looking at the wrong image and get all mixed up. Okay, so what I want here, I want to start building a little depth into some of these flowers. Now, you can see my line here just barely. That's these little, I have these little light colored thingies here. And then in behind them, see where it gets really dark at the base of the petal? Okay, that's where I want to put some emphasis. And so I'm going to start out with, well, it's not all as creamy as I wanted. There's some creamy, and that's just strong. So this is just Queen Gold. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in behind these little areas. You're probably having trouble seeing them on the video, but they'll come into view very quickly. So let's just do a little bit at a time. On the other hand, because I have my brush loaded, I don't want to just rinse that all out right now. Of course, the ideal situation is to use 2 brushes, but I'm kind of a mess that way. I don't generally make that happen. All right, so I've got these little shapes started here. Now I'm going to take my brush, and this is a sable brush, but you can do it really well with your black velvets. My black velvet is somewhere. I take those to class, and sometimes they get a little bit damaged when I loan them out. So I've made a bit of a line here between some of the petals. I want to be careful not to get too much of a line. There, I just drop a little water into it and kind of mess it up a little bit. See how it's bleeding and doing little, oh, it's got little run backs. I love those. Just love them. Okay. So let's see where else we could go. You know, it's a really dark spot right here in front of the little bitty petals. Right there. I guess I'm going to have to just dip right into my palette here. Get some really gooey paint. Okay, so right there. Well, I still didn't get gooey paint. I think I've got so much water floating in there. Let's see. Here's another opening right here. And here's another spot right there. Let's see if I've got enough paint on here to go to one more spot. Here's one right here. Okay, well, we're not going to leave those like that. That looks, wrong. These need to bleed out this way towards the center of the flower. I'm trying to do this without turning it. I need a little bit more water on my brush right here, because this will dry faster because it is in paint. And right here, oh darn, let's do a little something there. There. So if I work on this little area over here, I think that some of this will start to make sense. And see, if you could see the lines really well, it helps. But if you can't, this gets a little bit difficult. So I'm going to make this an edge that comes all together. And then we soften it coming in this way towards the center. See, there's a little bit of these little petals right there, right here. So this is the part where you're going to spend some time kind of studying this a bit at a time. I really didn't find it tedious, though. Hopefully it won't be. Let's see, here is an interesting shaped petal right there. Okay, no, it's this one. Okay. And so I'm going to put a shadow under this one that goes, oops, there's a thingy there that goes onto this because, oops, that was a petal. Supposed to be a petal. And so okay, well, let's just put a little yellow in there, a little new gamboge right in here to get its identity back so that we don't get confused again. Oh, there. Okay. So, see, there's all that undercolor coming through, and that makes this interesting. You know, all this undercolor with these little runbacks and little things going on here. This is part of the entertainment that we're building into this. I know when I see paintings that I like, they really entertain me, and I spend a long time looking at them. Of course, I'm also examining them to try and figure out how they did it, which that doesn't count as aesthetic appreciation, I guess, but I do some of both. Like I said, if you wanted to use 2 brushes for this, that would be so smart. But I'm really using round brushes here, and partly because I get a little less control with a round brush in terms of not where the point puts it down, but in terms of the water flow. And I want little things to happen here. Let's see. There's one there and here. Oh, here's a spot right there. Takes a little bit of looking, but here's the thing. If you get some of this in the wrong place, probably no one will ever know. It will still probably look right. I mean, you could do it in a way that messed it up. The worst thing you can do is start to put a line between each of these petals. That's what would kill it. But past that, a lot of things could happen here that would work. And you don't have to explain every spot here. Well, there's a place that I didn't do right. And you want to be sure and leave some light areas here. You don't want this all going dark, because that'll undo the whole deal. This shadow is cast onto the stem. We'll go ahead and make it gold there, though. Okay, so you see how this is beginning to happen. There's a whole lot of this that goes on, and I'm not going to put it all on the video, but I'll do a little more of it on the video here. At some point, you will have seen enough, and you'll be ready to do your own, instead of watching me all the time. Okay, here we go. So, trying to not turn it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with turning it. I'm trying to not turn it for the video. And some of these dark areas don't come in between the petals. They actually come down the center of the petal. Let's drop a little water in there and let something happen. I'll leave that, like, see that little division there between petals? That works in part because it's going to be pretty pale, especially once this is dry. We're largely looking to get a dark at the base of the big petals and here in front of the little petals where the center is. Oh dear, let's see. I can't make... Yeah, there that is. I don't think that's strong enough. Let's go a little more. Don't want that to turn into an outline. So I'm going to soften this edge, but it could go really dark. I could get a run back going back that way. That would be very pleasing to me if I did. See, I think I'll make just a little shadow right. I think I did that on the wrong part. I should have done it up here. Oh well. To see the center starting to emerge, we've got this petal right here. We've got several petals. See this one too. Ooh, did I draw that one? Well, I didn't make it big enough. Oh well. Anyway, this one sticks way up. And some of these are lapping over the center here. So let's put a little more of the center in. We can use a little less paint here. I am going to turn this. I'm just too clumsy. If you're needing to look at your photo, which you should be paying attention to your photo, you need to look at your photo, then you want to turn it the same direction. Refine what you're doing. Oh yeah, I am making an edge along here, and I want to keep this juicy enough that I can come back. Just add a blob of water in there. So it may run and do things that weren't quite what you planned, but they may turn out to be really good that way. Uh, a lot of this is really made by, oh dear, can't talk. Okay. A lot of this is really made by just really soft bits of running paint that eventually build up. In other words, it's not a carefully crafted, shaped thing. Oh yeah, because I love that petal there. This one was supposed to be bigger and I didn't draw it bigger. I didn't see the whole thing. So you may want to correct that on your drawing right there. Just look at the picture. There, this petal is actually big right there, but it so blends in with the center that it was hard to see and I missed it. On the other hand, I think it's such a good shape coming up in there that it's worth making it stand out. So, okay, so the flower is beginning to form. Now, at some point, you may get tired of messing with this. See, you could put a few, I'd say a very few little stripy things in here. If you do, they need to be broken up a lot. I would probably do very little of that. Possibly resist the temptation to do it at all, actually. Yeah, I'd say resist temptation. Okay, here's a petal here. At some point, I'm going to want some of these petals out here to have a dark tip on them, and other places I'm going to want a dark background behind it. Now, you can see I did that on this. See, I came out dark here, and here, well, I have a dark behind this, but it still shows up. Whereas here, there's a dark behind that, and I kept the petal light. Here, I went darker at the tip of the petal. Now, I'm not going to tell you where you should or shouldn't do that, but let's just pretend, let's say that we put one right there, and, oh dear, maybe one right here. Okay, again, that's pretty thick paint, or I'd call it creamy. I wouldn't really call it, it's not like it came out of the tube. And let's soften that edge. But again, we're not having to mess with making these, you know, sometimes I get onto you about blending out very softly and making a really good soft edge. As long as, I mean, it can be messy. It still needs to be soft, but it can be messy. Okay, so I'm just going to put a few tips on a few of these. Here's one behind one. Maybe I'll choose to do that. Whoops, I'm running into wet paint. Oh, that may not work. Or it may look fine just like that. No one's coming in here. You see, you're working with this and you're thinking about certain things. No one that's your observer is not going to come in here and say, does that belong to this petal or is there another petal here? How did that happen? You know, so on and so forth. They're not doing that. Okay. You know, a lot has happened here. I might be just about ready to stop. It doesn't mean that I'm all the way there with it, but I may have to make some other choices later. This petal is folded, and this is the center of the folded area. And I want to get light down here so that it contrasts with this area right here. Ooh, I wish I had a few more of those. I guess I could have had a few more of them if I'd paid attention. Okay. Let's do Let's do a little bit right there. Let's put a little shading on the back of this one. See, now I don't want it to dry like that with that hard edge. So we have areas that have a hard edge, and then we fade it out to light. So we've got some cool stuff going on in here. And right there, I guess we could do something with that. And then I'm going to temporarily stop on this, even though it doesn't mean that I am through with this by any means. Okay. I think that's beginning to look like, oh, this one. This is another petal. Yeah. This is another petal that got to be blue, which is okay. Because I'm going to claim it's okay. No, because it still works, just like it did over here. Now, about yellows, don't try to cover that blue up with the new gamboge. Use the new gamboge to tint the blue, but don't put it on thick. Anytime, now yellow, Queen Gold is a little different because it's a darker, richer color. That is, when it's more concentrated. But in general, when people put yellow on thick, it looks dull and dirty. I'd much rather have that blue come through there and give it a greenish cast than to have it look pasty. That will be interesting, and we'll figure out. This looks greenish, and I don't care that it looks greenish. So does this. I like that stuff. But if I wanted it to not appear greenish, by putting a really dark green in here, that won't seem green next to it. Unfortunately, that's not what I'm going to do here. I've got something else planned. We'll see how it looks. Maybe, I think I like that better. Yes, I like that. Even less yellow there. Okay, so I'm at a stopping point here. Yeah, finish up next time.